Find the derivative of y equals the square root of 4t minus 3 and then times cosine of 2t. So y here is the product of two functions, the square root of 4t minus 3 and then times the cosine of 2t. We will therefore make use of the product rule for the derivative, but before we do that, let's rewrite the square root as a fractional exponent. It's to the first power and second root, so 1/2 power. I'll leave the cosine of 2t alone. So overall for the derivative, y prime, which can also be called dy dt here, will be a product rule. We will start with the derivative of the first. That's a power rule. We bring the 1/2 down, we leave the inside alone. We subtract 1 from the power, I will call it 2/2, and then we multiply by the derivative of the inside of the power, which the derivative of 4t minus 3 will be a 4. Derivative of the first times the second left alone plus the first left alone times the derivative of the second. The derivative of cosine is negative sine of 2t, and then we have to multiply by the derivative of its inside, which is a 2, to complete its chain rule. The next steps are going to involve simplifying this result. For this first term, I'm going to move the 4 out with the 1/2. As a matter of fact, we can multiply them, and it'll become 4 over 2, which can reduce. We have a 4t minus 3 to the 1 minus 2, negative 1 over 2, cosine of 2t. For the second term, everything's multiplied, so this negative and this 2 can move to the front. Negative 2. We have 4t minus 3 to the positive 1/2, and then sine 2t. Now this 4 and 2 here will cancel down, leaving a 2. In my next step, I'm going to take that negative exponent that's with the 2 and the cosine 2t and move it to the denominator. Now the 2 and the cosine 2t will stay in the numerator, and that 4t minus 3 will move to the denominator and become a positive 1/2 exponent. And then we have minus 2 times 4t minus 3 to the positive 1/2 times sine of 2t for the other term. Now the next step is to get a common denominator between these terms. It's customary to put this into a single fraction. Whenever you have a denominator for one term, we will want to combine them over that common denominator. The second term doesn't have a denominator right now, so we're going to be multiplying it by 4t minus 3 to the 1/2 power over itself, a form of 1. So that they will have the common denominator. When we go and multiply these, it's going to be ideal to multiply this one with this one because they have the same base, in which case you add their exponents, and 1/2 plus 1/2 will give us 1. And we'll end up with that to the first power. So y prime, or dy dt, will equal, the numerator, we have a 2 cosine of 2t, then we will have a minus 2, and as I mentioned, multiplying these will become 4t minus 3 to the first power, and then sine 2t, and they're all over that common denominator of 4t minus 3 to the 1/2 power. The next step, we can factor out a 2 in the numerator. That's a possibility, and that will leave just a cosine 2t and a minus 4t minus 3 sine 2t. after factoring that 2 out. And the other thing that we can do here is rewrite the 1/2 power as 4t minus 3 to the first power and then square root. It'll look like that. And there's our factored version of our derivative y prime or dy dt.